What is this?
Cannon.
Please tell me it's a toy replica. That's what they actually look like?
Oh, yeah.
Like a little rocking horse almost?
Pretty much.
It's cute. Look, Fee. It's Fifi sized almost. Look, Bay. You're almost as tall as the cannon. The opening months of the War of 1812 were disastrous for the isolated American outposts in the West. Fort Mackinac and Mackinac Island had fallen in the first action of the war. The inhabitants and garrison of Fort Dearborn, at what is now Chicago, had been massacred. Detroit had surrendered August 15, 1812, and the French town settlement on the River Raisin was controlled by the British. When the Americans learned of the fall of Detroit, armies on the march in Ohio and Kentucky were reorganized and soon placed under the command of famed General William Henry Harrison. Their goal, the recapture of Detroit. The small American army was to be composed of 3 groups. On the right, men from Pennsylvania and Virginia. In the center, men from Ohio. The left wing of the gathering army consisted of tough Kentuckians, who were the first to arrive at the assembly point a few miles above the mouth of the Maumee River. These troops, about 1,100 quote-unquote effective soldiers under the command of General James Winchester, arrived at the rapids of the Maumee near present-day Toledo on January 12, 1813. Here, Winchester learned that there were only a few soldiers and several hundred of their Indian allies at the River Raisin. The decision was made to attack. Before dawn on January 18, 1813, Lieutenant Colonel William Lewis's detachment of 667 Kentuckians marched northward on the frozen river of Lake Erie. They arrived at La Plaisance, 2 miles south of the Raisin, at 3 p.m., where they were joined by 100 local resident volunteers. The Battle of the River Raisin was about to begin. You checking out the board, Fee? She's like, I'm tired of learning about heck of history. History's boring. I want to go chase geese. We're not chasing geese. But Mom! The first Battle of the River Raisin. 1. Assigned to capture the cannon, the right wing advances largely unopposed to a point northeast of the main assault. Pausing, they come under severe sniper fire and fall back to await the advance of the center. 2. The advanced guard the center and the left wings charged forward to assault the British. They sweep through British and Indian positions among the buildings of Frenchtown. 3. The local volunteers, eager to get into the battle, sally out in front of the American lines. 4. After briefly holding their positions, the British, under cover of their Indian allies, take up a new position just north of Mason Run. 5. The left and center try to outflank the retreating British and Native Americans. 6. After a brief stand, the British continue to fight and retire for about an hour. Most of the casualties on both sides are suffered in the intense skirmishing. 7. At nightfall, the British and Native Americans begin their retreat to Brownstown, about 20 miles from the River Raisin. The Americans retire to the positions formerly occupied by the enemy. And 8. The battle results in 13 Kentuckians being killed and 54 wounded. The number of British casualties is unknown, but 15 bodies are found in the settlement. It is assumed that those who may have been killed in the skirmishing were dragged off in the retreat. The Second Battle of the River Raisin. 1. Winchester hears of the victory early in the morning of the 19th. He orders Colonel Sam Wells to lead 312 men to the River Raisin. 2. Winchester, traveling by sleigh, arrives at Frenchtown at 2 a.m. on the 20th. He selects the house of Francois Navarre for his headquarters. 3. Wells arrives at 2 p.m. on the 20th. He protests his exposed position, but no decision is made to build defenses until the evening of the 21st. Wells then leaves to get more reinforcements from Harrison. 4. General Proctor quickly assembles an army of 525 soldiers. On the 20th, they leave Fort Meldon and march to Brownstone with 3 small sled-mounted cannon and 3 howitzers. 5. Reinforced by 800 Indians, Proctor's army marches to a spot 7 miles from the River Raisin. They begin their final approach in the early hours of the 22nd. 1. Arriving in the dark and undetected, the British take up positions in the center, flanked by the Canadian militiamen by their Indian allies. Before dawn, the Americans are roused from the drumming of reveille, followed by the sound of British cannon fire. January 22nd, 1813. 1. The American right wing in their exposed position comes under heavy fire and ordered to retreat to the riverbank. 2. To relieve the faltering right, nearly 200 men are sent as reinforcements. They retreat with the regulars to the north bank, but a brief stand there is quickly overrun. General Winchester is caught up in the group of soldiers and civilians fleeing to the south. 3. The 700 men under Colonel Lewis, protected by a puncheon force, drive back their first frontal assault by the British regulars. Mounted Indians from the British right wing take the rear of the retreating Americans and set an ambush at Plum Creek. 2. Flanked by mounted Indians, the scattered groups are slaughtered one by one. Of the nearly 400 persons in the rout, only 33 make it to Harrison's camp. More than 220 are killed. The rest, including General Winchester, are captured. The British reposition their artillery and attempt another frontal attack. They are again repulsed by the Americans. 4. The Americans burn 2 barns, which have provided cover for the British. British artillery fire sets another ablaze. After a third attempt to dislodge the Americans, this time in a columns of sections maneuver, Major George Madison, the officer upon whom command has devolved, receives a recommendation from the captured General Winchester that they surrender. Short of ammunition, Madison reluctantly agrees, and over 400 men march out and lay down their arms. The British, anxious to leave before American reinforcements arrive, march the captured Americans to the north. 65 wounded and 30 Kentuckians, who volunteered to stay and care for them, are left to Frenchtown under guard of 6 soldiers. These soldiers leave during the night. During the morning of the 23rd, the Indians return and begin to massacre the wounded soldiers and take the unarmed protectors prisoner. Remember the Raisin becomes the battle cry, which leads the Americans on to victory in the Old Northwest. And this is apparently one of the cannons that they used.
3-pounder. So called because it shoots 3-pound balls.
It shoots 3-pound balls? That sounds like that would make a pretty big impact. What do you think, Bay?
You're not wrong.
What do you think, Bay? You gonna learn how to use it? Gonna get those chihuahuas next door?